Hello, I'm Brian Pollitt and I'm a bookbinder who specialises in repairing books. I focus on books that are of personal value, ones that may have been passed down the generations or evoke special memories. My aim is to make those books usable again without the fear of causing more damage through use. Those with most damage tend to be the ones in constant use, such as Bibles, or heavier books that have been dropped, or even ones that just haven't been bound particularly well in the first place. I'll show you some examples of the type of books I get asked to repair, what the damage is, and what approaches can be taken to repair. I can also show you some examples of what not to do. My heart sinks when I see some repair attempts using sellotape and duct tape or even double-sided carpet tape. I'll then show you an end-to-end repair. That will be edited highlights, of course, because even the most ardent bibliophile will be fast asleep by the time they've watched me sewing 350 pages. Okay, so the first example I'm going to show you is a Bible. It's an interlinear Bible. It has been in daily use for nearly 30 years. The owner of this has heavily annotated it. There's writing on virtually every page. So rather than get a new one, she needs this to be repaired so that she can preserve all those thoughts. It is a good design with its leather bound. It's got an open spine. Unfortunately, the spine liner has become detached, leaving threads without support. Here's an example, so you can see the threads pulling through. It's quite loose now, and really, without the damage, if you look at the leading edge of this, that should be nice and smooth, and you can just see so many pages just sticking up and out. There have been repair attempts to this book already. For instance, you've got this tape which is just coming off now. There's bits of sellotape holding it together. I hate the use of sellotape because once it starts to yellow, it's impossible to undo the damage that does. Looks like someone's even used duct tape at the back of it. The only way to make this Bible safe again really is to take it apart, take the stitching out, line everything up again and resew it. That is going to take quite some time, so I won't be using this one for my repair video. I do have an example of a book which I'm part way through repairing and I've just finished resewing it. This is Shirley by Charlotte Bronte, so I'm going to hang on to the actual colours themselves. So that's the spine. I'm going to be sticking that onto a new one, so you can see that this book looks similar to the one I've just shown you, but once it's been resewn, you can see it actually all looks nice and neat. All I have to do with this one is round it and back it, and then make a new case and stick that back onto it. My next example is one I've just got from a client in the States. This is a Merriam-Webster dictionary. It's been used an awful lot. It was his dictionary when he was in school in 1955, so clearly it's got some special memories for him. Unfortunately, the spine has been lost completely and both boards are loose and badly worn. Again, a good example of sellotape that is yellowed, and that is not going to be possible to do anything with that because that stain has now leached into the paper itself. Quite a lot of the paper has been quite badly damaged, so you can see the edges of these. That's going to need what we call guarding. So we have this thing called Japanese kozo paper. It's very thin tissue paper made from the bark of the mulberry bush. It's very thin but has very long fibres, so it's really good for repairing books because once you've pasted it on, it is virtually invisible. You can see straight through it. So a fair bit of guarding to do on the loose pages. I'll be taking all this rubbish off the back of it, get the glue off. Shouldn't need to restitch all of it. I'll probably just have to take off the first couple of sections, guard the edges of those, sew them, and then I'll sew them back into the actual book itself. Then I've agreed with the owner that instead of trying to repair the case itself, I'll just make a brand new case and then bind that case into the book itself. So the book I'm going to show you next is Barnaby Rudge. by Charles Dickens. This edition was published in 1870, so it's 150 years old now. It's a well-worn volume, sun-bleached covers, battered corners, a torn spine. When I open it, you see that the inner hinge has completely gone, both front and back. Just about. Yep, there we go. So the case has now come off completely. And this is quite interesting. You can see that there's a picture on the spine, probably from a newspaper or something. This is something that some binders like to do. They put hidden pictures in, or sometimes they write a message in it, knowing that nobody's going to see it, at least in their lifetime, until the book falls apart. This book is stitched onto cords which supports the textbook in the case. You can just about make out the cords in the centre, if I can just show you those. So just here and here. So the stitching goes onto those and goes around it to support them, but unfortunately they've come loose, and also the cords have come away from the actual case itself. So this book is going to have to be what we call pulled. So basically we pull it apart, undo the stitching carefully. We'll put these sections together. A section is a group of 8 sheets of paper which are then bound together. It has standard 8 sheet sections. Try saying that. It each has standard 8 sheet sections, and each one has a signature, a small letter at the beginning of each one. I can just about make it out on that one there, letter D. Yep. Now sometimes you start a repair with an approach in mind, but once you have a book in bits, you can come up with a different method. With this one, as the case is already off, I'm intending to make a new case from the old material. So what I'll do is I'll preserve the 2 boards themselves. I'll need to put a new piece in to support the spine. I'll then strip down this completely. Once I've taken it apart, it will be stitched together again. I'll round it and back it so that you've got the classic mushroom shape there that the boards will fit snugly up into. We'll stick a piece of mull, a canvas mull, over the top of that, which will stick to that, and that mull will then stick to the boards here. What I'll be doing during the actual repair, I'll do a short video sequence just to show the essence of each step and the techniques used. So the first thing I'm going to do is hold the book in the lying press. Put a piece of card front and back just to protect it. Okay, I've already determined that the glue holding the spine liner on is very brittle, so it's easy just to pull this off. If the glue is really thick and tough, then you would put some thick new paste over the top and let it soak in. The tool I'm using is called a Teflon spatula, Teflon coated obviously, and the edges are rounded, not sharp, so I don't catch any of the book while I'm doing this. And there we have it, one nice clean spine. So the next job is to separate out the individual sections. Each section is 8 sheets of paper stitched on with thread onto a thick cord. Some of the thread pulls through, some bits left in the middle, so we'll just take all these bits out as we go along. I'm skipping through very quickly because it'd be really boring to watch me do all of this. There, that's a lot done. The next task is to check each individual section to see if there's any holes through that need guarding first. Guarding is where we stick a piece of tape over the hole to reinforce it and stop the thread pulling through further. So you can see that section needs it. That one's sound, that doesn't need any guarding. So what I'm going to do here is use what we call Japanese kozo tape. This is very thin tape. I think I mentioned earlier it's made from the mulberry tree, the bark of it. It's really good because it has very long thin fibres which are strong, so we can hold it, have it really thin. What I'm doing here is pulling off the cut edges to leave a deckled edge so that it's less obvious once it's pasted on. And just carefully smoothing down the edge to make sure it's properly stuck. We don't want any loose fibres sticking up. And we'll put that to one side to dry. You can see here where the edge has bent over because it's been rounded. So we're just going to straighten up the edges. I'll rub them flat with the bone folder and pull out any stray bits of glue that are left over. Being 150 years old, this book, the edges are quite warm, so it's a bit of a fact to try and get them open. Okay, here in my enthusiasm I started stripping stuff down without actually having the camera on, so here's the bits of the canvas hinge that I took off. So we're going to make a new piece to go in the middle. It's very important to make sure that the edges are aligned, otherwise when you close the book it'll look all wonky. I'm using masking tape because it's not particularly sticky, so it won't end up causing damage to the book. So I've got a piece of book cloth that I've already cut to size, so I'm going to be gluing this over the old spine with a bit to go up the side of the board and glue it onto the inner edge of the board. This will form part of the hinge. It will also help to cover the bits of the spine that have broken away and support the old spine. I'm using a clear PVA paste for this, as it's stronger than normal paste, but glue not paste actually. I'm pushing it into the edge with the bone folder to make a nice clean edge. Next is a piece of card, or very thin craft card, to line the spine with, provide a bit of support for it. And then we want to fold the top of the tail over. I'm using a ruler to lift this bit up because I can't quite see properly. Zoom this way around. I'd normally turn it around. And a quick rub down with the bone folder to make a nice sharp crease. So let's clean any excess glue off, and let's show you what it looks like so far. So most of the original spine is there, you can just see a bit of the new one showing through. I'm now going to punch new holes into each section. I made this little widget here to make sure we get the hole in exactly the same place every time. Cheap and cheerful, some people have fancy cradles. This way I can make sure it's aligned accurately every time. I'm punching new holes because a lot of the old holes are bigger than where the threads have pulled through, so this will make for a much tighter binding rather than trying to use the existing ones. There you go, nice new holes. So I'm going to be stitching this book onto tapes rather than cords. It's less intrusive and it's stronger. The tapes have been basically just stuck to the edge of the desk, and the whole spacing using my little widget before, so I'm just making sure they line up accurately here. It's quite a laborious process, but I find it quite meditative. The important thing here is when you're pulling the thread through, be careful not to pull too hard, otherwise it will break the paper. That's why I pull it along the edge of it rather than out. Once we get to the end, we use what's called a kettle stitch to pass through the thread from the section below it, just to keep the two closely held together. And there we are, an hour and a half later, and one fully sewn book. Okay, so we've now got our sewn book. The next stage is to do what we call rounding and backing. So basically you have to persuade it to take that sort of shape, which it already knows that from what we've done previously, and then we have to push these over to be a better mushroom shape. So we do that with the laying press, and we have these backing boards which have a nice sharp angle on them, so this will help us to form the collar. This is the fiddly bit, getting it all to sit just right. Turn it up. Okay, happy with it. Okay, next stage is to do some gluing. The next thing we add is a piece of canvas more. It's a fairly open weave, so the glue will go through it very easily, but it is very strong. This is what will stick the actual text block to the case themselves. Just whizzing off the corners here so they don't stick out. Let's get some more PVA. If you're wondering why I've got such a ridiculously small pot, it's so that the glue doesn't dry out in between individual book repairs. And just rub it down with my finger, make sure everything's stuck. It's a lovely messy job, this. Okay, next bit is to stick a thin piece of card over the cloth bindings, just to provide a bit of protection and stiffness. It's a trade-off between getting too much and getting too little. If you have too many layers on here, the book won't open properly. If it's too thin, it'll crease and crack. Oops, forgot to check out the clean edge there. Okay, just put that on, make sure it's nice and smooth. Rub it down with the bone folder just to make sure there's no lumpy bits underneath or anything sticking up. Okay, now I'm making some end papers. This will form the inner hinge, and it will also serve to cover up all the messy tapes and the mull. Slip underneath there like that. I've made the inner piece a little bit longer, just in case things move around when I'm sticking it in, and I can trim it off exactly once I've finished. So, this is the messy bit next. So I've got to paste the paper very quickly before it starts to curl up too much. You always use what we call a starburst pattern to make sure no paste gets under the edges. It's also important to make sure you don't have any blank bits, otherwise you get bubbles and things not sticking properly. Okay, this is the fork bit. Different people have different methods for this. Using paste rather than glue, it gives you the option to move things around if it's not exactly lined up like it is with this one. A piece of plastic is to stop any glue from going onto the page behind it. There, I think they're in place. No, this one's just come out. Okay, next bit is to do the other side of the end paper, so we're getting ready now to stick it onto the actual case itself. Again, you need to be pretty quick with this, because otherwise once the paper curls up, it becomes a little harder to manage. And make sure we get plenty on the tapes and the mull, because this is what supports the main hinge and takes the weight.
So that's both sides stuck down, so I'm just going to put a weight on this to press it for a few minutes.
So the last part is to put the book in the nipping press, just to help it to remember the shape it needs to be in. So we put it between some boards like that. Go over here, slide it into the press, making sure we don't squeeze the hinge too much, and just squeeze it down. Well, there you have it, a whistle-stop tour of my book repair process. I didn't get to demonstrate all of the techniques for bookbinding. For instance, with this book I didn't need to round and back it again because the paper remembered its shape. But the book is functional again, it looks a lot better than it did, and most of the repairs aren't visible. I do hope you found it informative and now have a better understanding of how our beloved books are constructed and why they sometimes fall apart. If you have any questions, come along to my live Q&A session on Saturday the 17th of October at 4 o'clock. See the Q&A page on the BookFest website for how to book. It's via Eventbrite, but it's all free. If you have a damaged book and would like a free appraisal, bring it along to the session. As long as we can get some close-up shots of the book, we should be able to get an idea of what needs to be done. You can also go to my website and read in more detail about some of the repairs I've done. There's plenty of photos with before and after shots and descriptions of the repair process we used. It also tells you how to get in touch with me. You can also see the credits page coming up. So, that's it. Hope to see you sometime, and bye for now.